I'm Holly with Stella Maurice Quilts, and today we continue our series on 50 blocks for 50 states, following along with the designs from this book. The information on that is in the description box below, as well as the link to the patterns that we've written with adaptations from the original designs. So today we're going to go ahead and do the block for the state of Nevada. So go ahead and grab your cup of tea, and let's get started. For the Nevada block, we're going to need 4 5-inch squares of our light, 4 2 by 4-inch rectangles, 4 2 by 2.5 inch, and then of our medium, we're going to need 4 2 by 7.5 inch and 5 3.5 inch. The 3.5 inch squares are going to have double-sided fusible adhered to the back. I've already done that on these. And so you will need some fusible where the glue side's on one side, the paper, you'll follow the manufacturer's instructions to fuse that to the back of your fabric. I went ahead and just cut a strip that was 3.5 inches and then subcut that into my squares so that I could attach it to the backs. We're going to go ahead and get started with the center of our block here. So for the center, we're going to be doing a few pieces here. Out of 4 of our medium squares with the fusible already sewn to the back here, we're going to cut quarter circles. So I'm going to use my circle cutting template, and I'm going to cut these one at a time just to make sure that I cut them nice and straight. I'm going to line this up so that the center line of my template lines up and my squares in a nice perfect corner there. And I'm going to go ahead and just use my rotary cutter. And I'm going to cut, this is technically a 6-inch circle. Now, if you're more comfortable, you could draw the line and then cut this with your scissors. Would work just fine. And I'm going to then come 2 lines in to where the 4-inch circle is. And I'm going to cut that as well, so that we end up with a piece that looks like this. These are then just scrap. I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to press it onto my light. I'll peel the paper back off first. Doesn't want to cooperate with me today. There we go. Go ahead and pull that paper back off. You can see it's shiny, and that's the glue. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that then down here so that my straight sides all line up just like that. And I'm going to press that down at the iron. I'll do that to all 4 of my 5-inch squares and 4 of my 3.5-inch squares of my medium. All right, now that all of those quarter circles are fused onto our 5-inch squares, we'll lay out that center section. We want it so that the medium forms a circle right here. And so we'll just go ahead and sew this together like a 4-patch. I might rotate some of these around just a little bit. I want to make sure that the lines of the circle will match up nicely after everything is sewn together. So I might kind of play with where I put the squares, but I think that looks good. So I'll go ahead and sew these together and these together, and then I'll sew all 4 together. Now that I've got all 4 of those squares sewn together, you can see my circle has a nice continuous line going around, and I focused more on getting the sides lined up for the circle than I did on getting my centers. You can see my center is not all perfectly lined up, and that's okay because we're going to actually add another circle of applique right there on the center, so I didn't worry about it. I may want to square and straighten up my edges here, but all of my little bits that are off are going to fit within my 1/4 inch seam allowance on the next step. So I'm just not going to worry about it. To get our circle that goes in the center, we're going to take our last 3.5 inch square and we're going to go ahead and fold it in half. Then we're going to fold it in half again. Actually, we'll just fold it in half the one time. And we're going to use our circle template here and then line it up on the fold line. We're going for a 2-inch circle. So I'm just want to make sure that my 2-inch circle fits on the fusible that's there, just so that all of it's on that. And I'm going to go ahead and cut. And with this small of a circle, it is better if you have a smaller rotary cutter. Mine's just a standard 45mm. But they do make rotary cutters that are smaller, and they can be helpful for these small circles to cut. So I'm just going to go ahead and draw that with my pencil, and I'm going to go ahead and then just use my scissors to cut that out. And it's just a 2-inch circle, so you can just use anything that you have as a circle template. And I'm going to bring this back here. I'm going to go ahead and stick that right there in the center. And I actually think that looks a little bit big on mine, so I'm going to change that. I'm going to just fold this back. I'm going to trim a little bit off. So you can make this a little bit smaller if you like. Just pick a size circle that you like for the center there. There, I like that a little bit better. So it's just kind of a 2-inch-ish circle. And I'm going to just center that right there, and I'll use my iron to press that down. And then after I've pressed it, I'm going to come through and I'm going to do my top stitching along the inner circle here, the outer circle, and around. I chose to wait for my top stitching so that if my lines didn't line up perfectly here, the top stitching would help to make it appear continuous. And that's what the center looks like after the top stitching is completed. You can see that by top stitching after sewing all of it together allows the stitching to help create the continuous line in case your points didn't match up perfectly. So moving on to the next part of this block, we're going to create some side units. We're going to do 2 units for the sides first, and then 2 units for the top and bottom. So they're constructed the same way. We're going to take our 2 by 7.5 inch strips and a 60-degree ruler. I'll do this with my 60-degree triangle as well as with my standard ruler. So first I'm going to take 2 strips, and I'm just going to line up one of the lines on my 60-degree ruler so that I have a 60-degree angle on the side here. I've got it all the way to the corner, and I'm going to go ahead and just trim that off. And then I'm going to slide over here, make sure I still have this nice and straight. And I'm going to cut an angle so that they're coming together, pointing towards each other. So again, just one of the lines on my triangle ruler here, all the way to the corner edge so that I have the angle, and I'm going to trim. That's how you would do it with a template. If you don't have a 60-degree ruler, you can still make the cut nice and easy. I'm going to put this on my mat where my 60-degree line is. So this is my 60-degree line on my spinning mat here. I'm going to take my fabric. I'm going to line it up so that the point of my fabric matches the point where my 60-degree line meets on my mat here. And I'm going to use my ruler. Just place that on my mat, following the 60-degree line, and I'm going to go ahead and just trim that off. I can also use the 60-degree line that's on my ruler and line that up. Let's see, I always have to think about this one. Nope, not that way. Let me flip it over. Here's my 60-degree line. Okay, so if I line my 60-degree line with the edge of my fabric here, all the way to the point, and then trim. So there's a couple different ways that you can do that, and just use whichever method works best for your brain and with the tools that you have. So I have 4 of my medium colored dark strips that now have that 60-degree angle cut so that they're coming towards each other. Now I need to have the corresponding lights cut. So we're going to need 2 strip sets that have the medium and the longer rectangles. These are 2 by 4, and I need them to fit together. So we need to cut 2 strips that have the 60-degree angle coming this way so that it'll line up, and 2 strips with it coming this way. So I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that these are stacked so that the right side is facing up on all of them. If you have them stacked so that the wrong sides are together, when you make the cut, you'll actually make one for each side. So it's depends on how you want to do it. You can stack them both together like that, where they're wrong sides together, or you can stack them so that they're right sides all facing up and do left and the right. I'm actually going to go ahead and just wrong sides together, stack them, use the line on my 60-degree ruler here, cut 1 angle, and then when I take these apart, I have a right and a left, just like that. I'm going to do the same thing with my 2 by 2.5. I need to do the same thing here. I'm making sure that they are wrong sides together in sets of 2 here. I can actually do all 4 at the same time. I'll stack them up, line up just any line so that I have the angle all the way to the corner, and cut. Whoops, didn't quite get that one. There we go. Now when working with 60-degree angles, or any triangles for that matter, having the notch cut can be really helpful so that you can line things up and get nice straight edges. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just put my 60-degree ruler here into the corner and trim the notches on all of these. And that's just going to help with lining things up. You don't have to do that. So I'll just demonstrate really quick. I'm going to cut. I'll just cut one of these for a second. And while I'm lining this up, this edge is straight with the edge of my fabric, and so is this. They're nice and flush. So I can just push this right up into the corner and cut the notch. What the notch does is when I come in here to add this strip here, it gives me a nice straight edge to line up my fabric. So if you can see that, I now have the corner cut off and it's flush now with the edge of the other strip on both sides here. And that's actually where my 1/4 inch seam allowance is as well. So I'll be able to sew from here over to here, which is also where that notch comes. And when I open it up, the edge will be nice and straight at the seam line point, right? It's hard to show without it actually being sewn, but it'll be kind of like, be nice and straight like that, versus possibly a little off. So the notch helps to just line that up. If you don't have the notch, you can just as easily put these together. And then when you fold it over to sew, you offset it so that your point extends, so that where the V kind of lines up here, that point is your 1/4 inch seam. And then you would sew all the way off, and this point would also mark your 1/4 inch seam. So you just have to kind of offset it a little bit so that when you sew it, then your seams create a nice straight edge. Take your pick, whichever way works best for you is the way that I would recommend doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish my notches, and then I'm going to sew these together. I'm going to sew, like I said, 2 sets where we've got the longer light section, and 2 sets where we have, that one goes there, that one goes there, this one goes here, this one goes here. So 2 at the long, 2 at the short. Now that I have these strips completed, we'll go ahead and add them to the center of the block. We'll start by putting the shorter ones on the sides, just like this, so that they narrow into the center. And then we'll put the longer ones on the top and the bottom. It may not look like it's going to fit with it laid out right here, but it's not accounting for the seam allowance. Once these are sewn, this will fit, and then this will fit over here. So I'm going to go ahead and take that to the sewing machine, and I'll be right back. And here's the finished Nevada block. Thank you for joining me today working on the Nevada block. I hope you enjoyed this and you continue along joining us through our journey of all 50 states. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss when the next video is released. Until next time, cheers and happy quilting.